Hello and welcome. Today I am currently at Lincoln County Airport in DCS 2.0, just doing a quick practice run with landings in the MiG-21. This is all going to be live commentary, and I am awful with words, so I will be stumbling. I apologize in advance. Uh, Basically, I have a problem with the MiG-21 in that my landings are almost invariably very short or very long, and painfully so. So what I will do is, because Lincoln County is a very short airport, I'm hoping that this will help me sort of break into the mindset of aiming for a very specific point on the runway and consistently hitting it. We'll see if that actually works. And also you notice I have Russian markings. Ugh, and Russian tooltips. I don't know this cockpit quite that well yet. So we'll see how well this goes. I haven't imported any texture mods, unfortunately, for this version. Fortunately, I still know where all the really key important stuff I'll need in flight is, and I also have quite a bit of it on my HOTUS at the moment. Boost pumps would probably help. Amazing how much better an engine runs when it has fuel. Most of what I'm turning on right now is unnecessary for my purposes, but force of habit. If I can remember which one it is... Actually, you know what? I'm going to leave the side off this time. Normally I'll use the fixed grid as an extra visual reference, but I feel like maybe I'm just using that as a crutch when I shouldn't be. So, current QNH is 760 because I made no changes to the weather. 760, and Lincoln County Airport field elevation is 1,467 meters, and I am reading about 1,500, so pretty close. Standard in American aircraft, at least by FAA standards, is you have to have a 75-foot maximum discrepancy in altitude. Can't really convert that to meters just off the top of my head, but that seems about right. We're within acceptable ranges anyway. I'm not going to bother setting QNH or QFE because I prefer QNH, just because that's how I've been taught and that's how I like to fly. So, this airport, to my knowledge, has no RSBN or ARC stations anywhere nearby. So I'll be doing this entirely visually, so we'll see how well that works out for me. I have my systems all fired up, just running through, double checking. Got my flaps, parking brake. Alright, we should be good. Brake test. Brakes are good. And runway heading should be 17. That doesn't seem right. Oh, that's magnetic. I wonder if this goes off of true heading. Let's see, 181. Okay, so yeah, this must be true then. So I'm going to go ahead and set that to 1.8. Just as an extra visual reference for when I'm lining up. In theory, at least, I shouldn't need it. Clear day, and basically no instrument practice to speak of, so... In real life, this is an uncontrolled airport, so standard procedure would be to dial into a particular frequency, the CTAF, and declare intentions at major points in the flight. Like for right now, I'd probably call Lincoln County MiG-21 is taxiing to the active runway 17, and then end again on Lincoln County. And I already know there's not going to be anyone, but never hurts, just in case I ever actually fly multiplayer before taking the runway. And then at this point I'd probably say something to the effect of Lincoln County MiG-21 is taking off runway 17 Lincoln County, or it might be taking the active runway 17 Lincoln County. I still haven't quite got that down yet. Nobody let my instructor know. So, we are lined up. Roll forward to get the nose wheel settled a little bit. This is a very narrow runway, so I'd like to be as straight on as possible. Flaps are already set. Brakes on. Power. And I haven't set my joystick curves. I'll fiddle with that later. This should be mill power right here. But we'll work with it. Do my best to keep it straight with the pedals. Forgot to get the nose wheel brake. Gear up. Controls more than a little bouncy. Flaps up. And I believe 600 meters should be a nice, even approach altitude, or pattern altitude rather. So let's call it right about, that's 500. Right about there or so, 600 meters. I'm going to try to keep it around 550 knots, or kilometers per hour. I also made no effort to study the terrain around here, which is probably not wise. Turn rate is a problem. I haven't done a lot of pattern work in the MiG, it's usually just straight in approaches, so that's on me. I am high by like 200 meters. You can tell I'm a very skilled and practiced pilot. That's 180 degrees. That's the taxiway. You go ahead and drop the gear. And I'm actually going to go ahead and put in that first notch of flaps now. Probably not the correct way to do it in the slightest. past the beam. With how gradually this thing seems to want to turn, I'm going to go ahead and start turning in now. It's a little earlier than I normally would, but again, I haven't done just a whole lot of pattern work in the MiG. Holding pretty much on altitude. Speed is about 400 kilometers per hour, which is manageable. Now, I know in a Cessna at this point I would be losing altitude to get down to final approach. I haven't done just a whole lot of visual approaches in the MiG though, so not sure how much I actually need to lose. Seems about right though. And if I go ahead and pop that last bit of flaps now and start my turn, I might actually come in a little early. I'm going to pull back a little bit of power. So once I get established on final, in practice at least, or in theory, I should be on speed, on glide slope, and controlling those two values with pitch and power, respectively. If I'm low, add power. High, reduce power. If I'm fast, nose up. If I'm slow, nose down. I'm also off center line pretty drastically, so we'll see if we can get that squared away. So I'm a little bit high and a little bit fast, so I'm going to nose up and power back a bit. I'm just going for a touch and go here. Power. Power back to landing setting. Flare. Floating. Oh! Power. Flaps up. And rotate. That was rough. No blown tires though, so there's that. I'm gonna go ahead and turn on stabilization. This should hopefully help me a little bit at least. I'm gonna give it a little more bank this time. High. Another thing I'm not used to in a Cessna. Winding up high before I've even rolled out onto my crosswind. Pilot-induced oscillation in the roll there you saw. I also haven't mapped my pitch trim, which is problematic. Okay, so lessons learned from that one. I believe I cut the power early. and perhaps a little bit too much. My muscle memory is tuned to a properly calibrated curve that I have set up for the standard release, so I haven't done that for 2.0 yet, so I needed to deal with that. Cut it a little bit too early, probably a little bit too much, and I feel like I did the standard newbie thing of gotta get it on the ground now, gotta get it on the ground now, and just kind of spiking the nose over a little bit. Not a healthy habit to be in. I am very high. Go ahead and reduce some altitude here. So I need to remember to really manage that flare, my rate of descent, as carefully as I can. So we're very high and a little faster than we were last time as well, so I'm going to extend my downwind a little bit. Just a skosh. Oh, compared to where it was before. First notch of flaps, which I would have done by now in the previous one. Consistency is key too. If you do it the same way every time, you'll end up with a fairly consistent approach, which is one of my major problems, is actually getting that consistency. Problem in real life too. Not nearly as much. A Cessna's a bit less of a handful than a fish bed. Also worth noting, I am only a student in real life. I am not licensed yet. So we're not on glide slope quite yet, and I don't feel like we're still descending pretty sharply, so I'm going to go ahead and add in a little mill power, see if I can get that descent under control a bit. I really got to get the yaw, just roll oscillations under control. Go ahead and pop the last degree of flaps. Perhaps not the best idea with the hill in the way. Rolled out too early again. I also have no wind to contend with here, so there's that too. With a runway this narrow and this short, and my skill level, I wouldn't want to try a crosswind. For another touch and go here. Alright, we're a little fast. And speed is pretty close. Let's see where it settles down here once I get the glide slope on. Come on, oscillation, stop that. I'm yelling at the plane for my mistakes. I'm off center line again. This is an awful approach, going around. Gear up. Positive rate of climb, gaining speed, first notch of flaps. fast and high. Second notch flaps in. Let's give me a nice 90-degree turn. Very high again. Actually hit 5G at some point. 5.5. I hope that wasn't that bounce. That can't be good for the gear. At the same time though, I can't think of any other time that would have been. Alright, I'm going to go for a full stop on this one, and then I'm going to try to get my axis curves set out correctly. Get my afterburner detent in the right spot. I'd be willing to bet if I look at the chart for this thing, it probably demands a, well, no, it's got a mountain over there too. Maybe a higher traffic pattern, but I couldn't find anything in the, well, I couldn't find an AFD page at all for it, an airport field diagram. A lot of the other airports in the Nevada map have it, but this one, not so much. So that's interesting. So see, roll oscillations again. Maybe I should put a tighter curve, larger curve on roll. Or I could just learn how to fly right. Roughly beam the threshold. First notch gears, or gears, first notch of flaps. A little extra power to soak it up. And we're a little high, but not nearly as bad as we were last time. Go ahead and start my turn now. Okay, nice, 30-degree roll. A little extra power. So I don't quite like the look of that descent rate. This is going to be a much shorter final approach. Let's see how well I do it. This may be a full stop in a very different way than I intended. There I go, rolling in too early again. I think I'm using that row of buildings there as the my visual marker unintentionally. Expecting the runway to be next to them. That doesn't make much sense either for what's happening, but that's my excuse. Overshot again, pretty dramatically this time. Straighten out. Nope, nope, nope. I'm gonna force it this time. It's not gonna go well, you're gonna see. Ballooned. Going around. I'm not even gonna try to push it. Whoop. Come on. Nope. 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 So much nope. Gear up. I really gotta get my ass in gear. Apparently I never dropped that second notch of flaps. That might have been a big part of the problem. Again, consistency. You're not doing it the same way every time. It's not going to come out the same way every time. Might have blown a tire on that one. Oh. Ooh. No, my nose gear is stuck down. Hammered it into the ground way too hard. Or not. Shit show. Alright, I'm gonna try to get some speed behind me here. See if I can get these gears to lock. This is not the correct method, I'm sure, but I'm thinking a little speed and a little G ought to do it. If anything. They do not want to lock. Alright. My understanding is I want my nose gear only, so actually I'm going to leave that down, locked. I can't do anything about my mains, but... well, maybe they'll stay. We'll see. This is a beautiful explanation and description of how not to do this. My roll is all over the place. My general control precision is just awful. Every approach attempt, and I use the word attempt lightly, is just terrible. Next notch of flaps. Little extra power to soak up the difference. So this one's a do or die, and then I'm going to make a few quick tweaks to my controls, getting my pitch trim going, adjusting my curves, and getting my throttle axis set up correctly. missing the runway entirely. All the braking, shoot, air brakes, flaps, don't even care at this point. Just want to not blow up. So I'm going to go ahead and make some adjustments off camera and be back in a minute. Alright, and we are back. I've made a few adjustments. I've gotten my pitch trim mapped correctly. I've got my throttle curve set up to be a linear power progression from minimal to mil power right at my afterburner detent, and then into afterburner beyond that point. And I've also added a little bit more of a curve to my pitch and roll, so we'll see how that does. So, let's go ahead and get this moving. So, brakes on, power, mil power, and afterburner. Controlling the center line as much as I can, because I'm an awful pilot. Gear up. And if I remember correctly, technically flaps are supposed to come up 100 meters AGL according to MiG standard procedure. Afterburner out at 600 kph. I still have yet to learn how to properly read the turn rate on the DA200, so that'll be a challenge for another time probably. Meters high. And 100 kph fast. But that doesn't really matter too much at this phase, at least not the speed. And we have all the time in the world to correct that later on. Go ahead and add in some pitch trim. Pull back a little power to get my speed down a little bit. Gotta admit, not comfortable with how close this terrain is. But that's life. I'd be willing to bet this airfield has a higher published altitude. I still have yet to learn how to properly read the turn rate on the DA200. So that'll be a challenge for another time, probably. Meters high. And 100 kph fast. But that doesn't really matter too much at this phase, at least not the speed. And we have all the time in the world to correct that later on. Go ahead and add in some pitch trim. Pull back a little power to get my speed down a little bit. Gotta admit, not comfortable with how close this terrain is. But that's life. I'd be willing to bet this airfield has a higher published altitude angles, bank angles, because they can. And with how broad of a square this thing draws at these little shallow angles that I've been doing, I'd be willing to bet they probably do that to get a lot closer to the field on their downwind. More margin for error if they ever have an engine out while they're in the pattern. They can just come back and, in theory at least, put it down on the runway, or at the very least near it, rather than having to just find a nice little cornfield somewhere. I feel like my control's a little more precise now. Well, I'm sure that'll change once I get on final. Altitude feels acceptable. Speed coming down. I feel like maybe I should be practicing this at a field that has PAPI lights, or VASI. Get a better feel for how the glide slope really looks in the MiG-21. I've heard people tell me that glide slope is the last thing on your mind in a MiG-21's approach. More AOA and rate of descent, but that just feels wrong to me. But then that's also coming from the perspective of a civilian Cessna pilot. Civilian Cessna student pilot, no less. Swinging wide again. I'm high. Well, no, actually I don't feel that high. I'm fast, however, so I'm going to try to pitch up a little bit. I'm off the runway. Going around. Full power. Gear up. Ah, that may have been part of it. I only dropped one notch of flaps. I really got to get my lineup down. And that's true in real life as well. I'm not very good at lining up properly on a runway. Still climbing like a mother, way high. It's 90 degrees. Let's roll out for, let's call it 5 seconds this time. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and back the other way. I tend to fly some long crosswind and, as a result, long bases in real life as well. One of my multitude of weaknesses. Endless multitudes of weaknesses. Among the others, rolling out too late. resulting in ridiculously aggressive maneuvers like that. Midfield, gear down, add a little extra power to compensate. A beam in the numbers, first notch of flaps. Gumps, gas, undercarriage, mixture, prop, not relevant, and I actually don't remember what the S is in speed. If someone wants to remind me in the comments, that'd be great. I want to say speed. Seatbelts? I don't know. I guess in this thing it would just be GUPS, gas, undercarriage, power, speed, or something like that. Let's go ahead and roll in now. Rate of descent is looking good. Terrain is looking more than a little uncomfortable. Say what you will about the MiG, it certainly does bleed speed easily. High AOA, or even respectable AOA. Yeah, speed in this case, but energy, altitude. Makes me uncomfortable over these hills. But that's my feeling as a pilot, not the plane's fault. I'm the one who doesn't fully understand how to properly fly this thing. Last notch of flaps, turning in. I'm going to turn in a little more aggressively than before, 45-degree angle bank, because I started late, and I'd rather turn out a little too early than too late and try to have to go back and correct as I'm trying to get my speed, my approach all on the money. I am at military power. Maintaining speed. Glide slopes looks somewhat acceptable. There we go. There we go. Alright, let's bring a little power back so I don't balloon when I bring the stick back to control my rate of descent, or my speed rather. And actually I'm high, so I'm going to bring back a little extra power. Now I'm slow, so I got to nose down, add some power to compensate, add all the power, go around. I know this isn't real life, but the most important decision, in my honest opinion, to be able to make in a situation like that is go around. Don't try to salvage a bad approach. Not really relevant in a video game, but it saves me reload time. Settle in on my altitude nice and smooth. Nice, gentle, comfy rollout. Sort of. And I'm climbing again. I'm also fast, and I had the trim set for much slower speeds. shot again. Midfield, actually downwind of being the maneuvers. Alright. Gear. First notch flaps. Descent is out of freaking control here. Speed is good though. I feel like we're a little low, so I'm going to hold off on dropping in that last notch of flaps just yet. Actually, no, let's go ahead for it. Feels like it should self-correct pretty soon here. I turned in way too early. Pitch for speed, pitch for speed. Power back. Flare. Controller rated descents. Touchdown. Power. Flaps up. Rotate. Could have been a lot better. Positive rate of climb. Gear up. 100 meters. Flaps up. Lineup is a bane of my existence, I swear. Left the afterburner in way too long. So this thing doesn't seem to like to turn at really low bank angles, so I'm going to try to get a little more pushy with it. At least at higher speeds. So, that one. I felt like I went long. I was off center line, but what else is new? And I kind of forced it. I didn't just kind of force it, I really forced it. I pushed that approach that I should have gone around, really. I was off to the side, practically to the point of being off the runway. That was just not a very good approach. I should not have gone for it. Call that midfield. Gear down. Interestingly enough, the gear actually continues to transition even if you neutral the lever. So there's that. First notch of flaps, a little power. You know, actually, I'm going to leave that first notch of flaps out for a little bit longer this time. Or leave it in, rather. Well, leave it up. Ambiguity, yay. Just to see how it goes. See if maybe it's a little less harrowing climbing over these frickin' hills. A little more power to play with without much drag. Or with as little drag as I have right now. So I actually haven't lost any altitude at all. I'm going to come out high, so I'm going to go ahead and pop in that notch of flaps now. Roll out. %, RPM. 5 meter per second rate of descent. This feels a little more manageable. Wait a little bit longer. Pull it out to maybe 90%, see how that goes. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and roll in now. Dropping the last notch of flaps. A little more power. There's the afterburner D10 right there. Full power just to maintain speed and altitude. It's a little harrowing. Okay, so I rolled out a little early, but that's okay. I can correct that. A little fast. And a little high. Gonna pull out some power. Let it all settle down. Might be settling a little too much. Those power lines certainly don't give much room for error, do they? Alright, over the obstacle. Power to 50%. Well, to landing. Flare, flare, flare. Touchdown right before the marks. Alright. Power. Oh, that's a tire. That's a tire. I exceeded... No, I didn't. I was at 307. Damn it, son of a... Alright. Alright, so... Emergency procedures for a tire out on landing. Leave the gear down. Control your speed. Flaps are already up. Okay, so it looks like this next one gets to be a full stop. At this point, I would wish I had someone on hand to do a BD, well, not a BDA per se, but an assessment. Fuel burn is not bad, 1,500 liters. It's a little more than half. Should be manageable, right? For an emergency landing on a short-ass runway. I'm just going to give it 3 seconds this time. 1, 2, 3. Another 90-degree turn. I'm high, so I'm going to go ahead and use that to try to regain some of the altitude that or some of the speed that Well, no, I guess my speed is acceptable considering. Let's keep it below 550. A little high, actually. I'll pull back some power. One thing, a useful lesson I feel in formation practice, which admittedly I'm every bit as awful at that as I am at this. You're never in the right spot. You're always correcting to get into the right spot. Constantly look at where you are, where you want to be, make those nice little minute adjustments. Don't push yourself. And don't expect the plane to stay exactly in the right spot unless, you know, just some weird chance it just happens to decide it likes it there. But always, always, always making corrections, making adjustments. Like for example right now, I bet I could tell you which tire is blown based off of which rudder. No, well, yeah, actually, less tires sticking out. I guess that makes sense that that'd be less drag. Alright, so let's go ahead and turn in. Right now I'm having to give it a little bit of extra left rudder to keep it coordinated. That should make that landing interesting. Alright, I am too high and too fast. I'm going to pull back some power. Get that descent rate going. Get it down to that 370 to 400 range. Notice this time my accelerometer is not pegged at 10 Gs from the impact to the ground, so that's nice. First notch of flaps. Oof. I'm gonna need a lot. I started way too early, I forgot. I cut that one short. On the crosswind, so I'm gonna need to kind of haul it around to get it lined up. Not something I would ever do in real life, at least not in a Cessna, that's for damn sure. At that point, I don't know, I guess it would depend on how far I had to go, but last notch of flaps. Power back, because I'm going to need to pitch up for speed, because I am very fast. Alright, speed is good, adding some power. Alright, this one's full stop, no matter what. Those power lines certainly do make me nervous. Not pretty, not pretty. Shoot. Flaps up. Light on the braking. What with the not having a tire on that side. Come on, baby. Lovely, my mirror doesn't work in this thing. Alright. Oh, no, 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 no. Well, that got interesting. Okay, my chute did pop. Alright. Well, that was unexpected. Nice fun little place. I guess that's a good spot to leave it off. So, I guess there really wasn't a point to any of that, just felt like recording. So, I guess that was some touch and goes on a short runway in the MiG-21, just showing off how bad of a pilot I really am. I guess I will see you guys in the next video.